In bed, in shower, day or night, I'll do anything. The giant bride said to the lonely cowboy. Witness this unbelievable, true, inspired story right here on Whisper of the Past. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share where you're watching from. Let's get started. Jack Thornton's breath caught in his throat. Not because of what she said, but because of the way his daughter's eyes lit up for the first time in 2 years. Little Sarah had been silent since her mother died, hadn't spoken a single word. But now she stepped forward, tugging Eleanor's black dress with tiny fingers, and whispered, "Will you tuck me in tonight? Papa tries, but he cries too much and it makes me scared." Elena's composure cracked. She knelt down, tears streaming freely. "Oh, sweetheart, crying isn't something to be scared of. It means your papa loved your mama so much he still aches." She looked up at Jack with eyes full of understanding. "I lost someone too. I know what it's like when your heart breaks so badly you think it'll never work again." Jack felt something shift in his chest as this stranger gently braided his daughter's hair. "Maybe," Elena said softly, "maybe broken hearts can help each other remember how to beat properly again." The sunset painted the porch in gold and amber, but Jack couldn't look away from this woman who just stepped off the afternoon stage. Her hands moved through Sarah's tangled hair with a gentleness that made his throat tight. He hadn't seen his daughter reach for anyone since the funeral, hadn't heard her voice except in nightmares that woke them both at 3 hours in the morning. "You talked," Jack whispered, and Sarah turned to him with tears on her cheeks. "She smells like Mama," Sarah said, her voice small and broken. "Like lilacs and soap." Elena's hands stilled in the child's hair. "Your mama wore lilac water?" Sarah nodded, burying her face in Elena's dress. The woman's arms came around her instantly, naturally, like she'd been holding this child her whole life. Jack watched his daughter sob into a stranger's shoulder and felt his own eyes burning. "I wear it because it was my mother's scent," Elena said, rocking Sarah gently. "She died when I was 9. I remember thinking if I could just smell like her, maybe I wouldn't feel so alone." Jack's chest felt like it was splitting open. He'd answered 23 letters from women responding to his advertisement. 23 careful, proper letters full of qualifications and expectations. Elena's had been different. She'd written 3 sentences. "I'm broken. You're broken. Maybe broken pieces fit together better than whole ones ever could." He'd written back the same day. Now here she was, holding his shattered daughter on a porch that needed painting in front of a house that was falling apart, just like everything else in his life. The ranch was barely surviving. The bank was circling, and he was so tired of being strong, so exhausted from pretending he knew what he was doing. "I can't pay you much," Jack said, his voice rough. "The advertisement might have made things sound better than they are." Elena looked up at him, Sarah still clinging to her waist. "I didn't come here for money, Mr. Thornton. Jack, please, Jack." The way she said his name made something in his chest unclench. "I came here because your letter was the only one that told the truth. You didn't promise me an easy life or a perfect home. You promised me honesty and hard work, and a man who wouldn't pretend grief doesn't exist." She stood slowly, keeping Sarah close. "I've been running for 6 months from a man who wanted to own me, who thought love meant control and obedience. I'm tired of running, Jack. I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of being alone." Her voice cracked, "And your letter made me think maybe I didn't have to be anymore." The evening wind carried the scent of sage and dust. Somewhere in the distance, cattle were lowing. The porch boards creaked under their feet, and Jack Thornton looked at this woman with tears on her face and his daughter in her arms, and thought maybe his letter had saved them both. "The house is a mess," he said quietly. "Sarah's room is the only one that's decent. Mine is just a bed and gilt. And the spare room where you'll sleep, it's got holes in the ceiling, and the window doesn't close right. I've slept in worse." Elena's smile was sad and real. "I've been staying in boarding houses where the walls are so thin you can hear every prayer and every argument. I've walked through towns where people look at a woman traveling alone like she's already lost. I've eaten cold beans from a can because I was too afraid to sit in a restaurant by myself." She touched Sarah's hair again. That same gentle motion, A room with holes sounds like heaven if it means I don't have to be scared anymore. Sarah pulled back to look at Eleanor's face. Are you going to stay? Papa said, you might not like it here, that you might get back on the stage tomorrow. Did he? Elena raised an eyebrow at Jack, and he felt heat crawl up his neck. I just meant, he started, then stopped. Started again. I meant that I'd understand if this wasn't what you expected. If bye wasn't what you expected, Elena stepped toward him, Sarah's hand still in hers. She reached out and touched his face, her palm warm against his bearded cheek. He froze. Hadn't been touched like that since Catherine died. Hadn't felt another person's warmth, except when Sarah climbed into his bed during storms. You're exactly what I expected, Elena said softly. A good man who's drowning. A father who's trying so hard he's breaking. A person who needs help just as much as I do. Her thumb brushed across his cheekbone, and Jack realized he was crying. When had he started crying? He tried to pull away, embarrassed, but Elena held his face steady. Don't, she whispered. Don't hide. Not from me. Not anymore. Sarah wrapped her arms around both their legs, creating a circle of 3 broken people on a sagging porch as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. And for the first time in 2 years, Jack Thornton let himself cry without apologizing. Let himself be held by this stranger who wasn't a stranger at all. Let himself hope that maybe Elena was right. Maybe broken hearts could help each other heal. Elena pulled back first, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. So, she said, trying for lightness. Someone want to show me this house with holes in the ceiling? Sarah grabbed her hand immediately. I'll show you. I'll show you everything. We have chickens, and Papa lets me name them. And there's this one called Rosie, who follows me everywhere. And we have a barn cat who had babies. And Papa said, I couldn't keep them all, but maybe if you ask, he'll say yes, because grown-ups listen to other grown-ups better. The words tumbled out like water from a broken dam. 2 years of silence ending all at once. Jack watched his daughter pull Elena toward the door, chattering about cats and chickens, and the tree behind the house where her mama used to push her on a swing. Elena looked back at him over her shoulder, and something in her expression made his heart stutter. Not pity, not obligation, but something like recognition, like she saw him completely and wasn't afraid of what she found. You comin', Jack? She asked. He picked up her single battered carpet bag from the porch. Everything she owned in the world fit in one bag, just like everything he owned, emotionally fit in the broken pieces of his heart. Yeah, he said. I'm coming. The house smelled like burned coffee and unwashed dishes. Elena noticed but didn't comment. She followed Sarah through rooms that told stories of surrender. A dining table buried under papers and tools. A kitchen where every surface held something waiting to be cleaned. A parlor where dust motes danced in the dying light through curtains that hadn't been washed in years. But Sarah didn't see any of it. She pulled Elena from room to room with the desperate energy of a child showing treasures to someone who might actually stay. This is where Mama kept her sewing basket and Papa won't touch it. And this is where we used to read books before bed. And Papa still reads to me sometimes, but his voice gets all shaky. And this is the window where I saw a coyote once, and Mama said it was probably just looking for its family too. Jack followed behind them, seeing his home through Elena's eyes and feeling shame burn in his stomach. He'd let everything fall apart. The house Catherine had loved, had made beautiful with wildflowers in jars and bread cooling on windowsills and laughter that used to fill every corner. Now it was just a building where 2 people existed without really living. Elena stopped in front of Catherine's sewing basket and touched on a side table like a shrine. She reached out slowly, then hesitated, looking back at Jack. May I? He wanted to say no, wanted to keep that basket frozen in time, with Catherine's last project still folded inside, waiting for hands that would never return. But something in Elena's careful respect made him nod. She opened it gently, pulling out a half-finished dress small enough for Sarah. The fabric was yellow with tiny white flowers. But Elena's hands trembled as she held it up to the light. She was making this for you, Elena Nena said to Sarah, her voice thick. Look how beautiful. Sarah touched the fabric with one finger. For my birthday, but she got sick before she could finish. Papa tried, but he doesn't know how to sew. Eleanor looked at Jack, and he saw the question in her eyes. He nodded again, unable to speak. Then maybe, Eleanor said carefully, maybe we could finish it together, you and me. If that feels right to you both. Sarah's eyes went wide. To look out the window. The evening was deepening into purple and gold. Soon he'd need to light lamps, make some kind of dinner, figure out how to navigate this strange new arrangement where a woman he'd just met was standing in his dead wife's house, talking about love and stitching. Papa cries when he looks at Mama's things, Sarah said matter-of-factly with the brutal honesty of children. That's why he doesn't touch them. Of course he does. And Eleanor pulled Sarah close. That's not weakness, sweetness. That's love with nowhere to go. It just sits inside your chest and hurts because the person you want to give it to isn't there anymore. Do you cry about your mama still? Every single day, but lately it hurts a little less. Time doesn't heal wounds exactly. It just teaches you how to carry them better. Jack turned back to face them. This woman and his daughter sitting on the floor beside his dead wife's sewing basket, and felt something crack open inside his chest. Not breaking, opening like a door he'd kept locked, was finally letting light through. I should make dinner, he said, his voice rough. It won't be good. I can't cook worth a damn. But there's beans and some bacon and bread from town that's probably still decent. Elena stood, brushing dust from her black dress. How about I cook tonight? You've had a long day meeting strange women who show up claiming they'll do anything. The way she said it made him smile despite everything. You regretting that line yet? Not even a little bit. She moved toward the kitchen, rolling up her sleeves. Though I should probably clarify that I meant work, not I know what you meant. Jack felt heat in his face again. I didn't expect. We're strangers. I wouldn't, Jack. She turned to face him, and her expression was gentle. I know, that's why I answered your letter. Because you're a good man. A good man who's drowning and needs help, not anything else. But the way she said it, looking at him with those dark eyes, full of understanding, and something else he couldn't name, made his heart beat faster. Made him aware of how small his kitchen suddenly felt with her in it. Made him notice things he'd been too numb to notice for 2 years. The curve of a woman's neck, the sound of a female voice in his house, the way the air felt different when you weren't alone anymore. Sarah appeared between them, breaking the tension. Can I help cook? Mama used to let me stir things. Of course you can. Eleanor touched the child's hair. You can be my official stirring assistant. But first show me where everything is. I need to learn my way around. They moved through the kitchen together. Sarah opening cabinets and drawers. Elena making mental notes. Jack standing uselessly by the door, watching 2 people fill a space that had been empty for so long. The stove is temperamental, he offered. Burns hot on the left side, barely works on the right, just like my boarding house stove. Elena bent to examine it. I learned to cook with one hand in the fire and one in the ice. This will be familiar. She found an apron hanging on a hook. Catherine's apron faded blue with flower stains that had never come out. Eleanor looked at it for a long moment, then at Jack. He nodded, throat tight, and she tied it on. It was too short on her. Catherine had been smaller, more delicate. Eleanor was tall and solid, built for work and survival. But something about seeing another woman in that apron, moving through his kitchen with capable hands, made Jack's chest ache with loss and hope tangled together. Tell me about her, Elena said softly as she started pulling out ingredients. You're Catherine. If it doesn't hurt too much, it always hurts. Jack leaned against the doorframe. But maybe that's okay. Sarah climbed onto a chair to reach the counter better. Mama laughed all the time. She made Papa laugh too. Even when he was grumpy about the weather or the cows or the bank, she did. Jack's voice was barely audible. She could find joy in anything. A sunset, a new calf, bread rising properly. She made everything feel like it mattered. Elena's hands stilled over the beans she was sorting. She sounds like she was extraordinary. She was. And I don't know how to live in a world where she isn't anymore. The words hung in the air, true and terrible. Sarah stopped stirring and looked at her father with eyes too old for her face. "But you're trying," Elena said, resuming her work. "You're here. You're taking care of Sarah. You're keeping the ranch going even when it would be easier to give up. That's not nothing, Jack. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does. After my mother died, my father tried so hard to be both parents, but he was drowning just like you. He started drinking to numb the pain, started gambling to feel something other than grief. He lost everything because he couldn't accept that trying his best was enough, even when his best wasn't what it used to be." She turned to look at him directly. "Don't make his mistake. Don't let grief convince you that surviving isn't worth celebrating what happened to him. Your father," Elena's expression went carefully blank. "He died owing money to men who don't forgive debts, and his daughter had to run across 3 states to escape the man they sold her to in payment." The words dropped like stones into still water. Jack straightened, fury and horror flooding through him. "They sold you, promised me technically, to a man named Richard Blackwood, who thought a wife was the same as property. He had connections, wealth, plans for what kind of woman I should be." Her voice was steady, but Jack could hear the tremor underneath. "I ran the night before the wedding, took what I could carry, and disappeared. Is he looking for you? Almost certainly. Men like him don't accept rejection, but he's looking for a scared girl in fancy dresses. Not a mail-order bride in the middle of nowhere wearing a dead woman's apron." Sarah had gone very quiet, processing. "Are you hiding?" "I'm starting over," Eleanor corrected gently. "There's a difference. Hiding means you're waiting to be found. Starting over means you're building something new." Jack moved without thinking, crossing the kitchen to stand beside her. If he comes, you'll have enough to worry about keeping your ranch from the bank." Elena met his eyes. "I don't expect you to fight my battles, Jack. I just need a place to catch my breath, to remember who I was before everything fell apart." "You're wrong." His voice was low, intense. "You answered my letter. You came all this way. You're standing in my kitchen making dinner for my daughter. That makes you family. And I protect family." Something shifted in Elena's expression. Surprise, gratitude, and something that might have been the beginning of trust. "You don't even know me. I know you knelt down and held my crying daughter like she mattered. I know you talked about my dead wife with respect instead of jealousy. I know you're running from violence and chose survival over surrender." He was close enough now to see gold flecks in her dark eyes. "That's enough. More than enough." The kitchen felt smaller, warmer, charged with something neither of them was ready to name. Sarah's voice broke through. "The beans are ready to cook now." Elena blinked, stepping back, returning to the stove. But her hands were shaking slightly as she added the ingredients to the pot. Jack retreated to the doorframe, heart hammering, wondering what he'd just promised and whether he could actually deliver it. They made dinner together. Elena cooking, Sarah stirring, Jack setting the table with mismatched plates and bent forks. The house filled with smells it hadn't held in years. Bacon sizzling, beans simmering, coffee brewing properly instead of burning. Through the window, stars began appearing in the darkening sky. "It's ready," Elena finally said. And they sat down at the table like a family, like this was normal, like their first meal together wasn't also the first moment of something none of them could predict. Jack took a bite and felt his eyes widen. "This is incredible," Elena smiled. Really smiled for the first time since arriving. "Don't sound so surprised. I told you I'd do anything. Day or night, even make beans taste like they're worth eating." Sarah giggled, the sound bright and unexpected. Jack stared at his daughter, laughing, and felt tears burning his eyes. "Again, thank you," he whispered to Eleanor. She understood he wasn't talking about the food. "Thank you for answering my letter," she whispered back. And in that moment, sitting at a scarred table in a broken-down house, 3 damaged people began the slow work of becoming whole. That first night, Elena tucked Sarah into bed, while Jack stood in the doorway watching. The room was the only space in the house that still looked cared for. Stuffed animals arranged on shelves, drawings pinned to walls, a quilt that Catherine had made spread across the small bed. Sarah clutched a worn rabbit to her chest, eyes fixed on Elena's face, like she was afraid to blink in case this woman disappeared. Will you really be here tomorrow? Sarah whispered. Elena smoothed the blanket, her movements careful. I'll be here. That's what Papa said about Mama, that she'd be here in the morning. But she wasn't. The words hit Jack like a fist to the stomach. He'd said that the last night before Catherine died, when she was burning with fever, and Sarah had been crying scared. Mama will be here in the morning, I promise. A promise he couldn't keep. Eleanor's voice was steady when she spoke. You're right. Adults say things they believe are true, and sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes people leave even when they don't want to. Your mama didn't want to leave you, sweetheart. I'm sure of that. Then why did she? Because sometimes our bodies break and we can't fix them no matter how hard we try.